Hello, I'm Bohdan Nahaylo, Chief Editor of Kyiv Post. I'd like to share some more reflections with you on latest developments, so allow me to think out loud. Well, it's approaching the end of the year. Halloween is upon us. The season of ghouls, demons, witches, monsters, supposedly to be celebrated in good humor. But let's recall that the 1st of November also marks the end of World War I, and in many countries it's a day of remembrance, a remembrance for all those killed in wars around the world. And this year, certainly Ukraine will be remembering many thousands of its soldiers and civilians who have been killed by the Russian invaders. But unfortunately, it's not just Ukraine where war is raging, and all attention in recent days has been diverted to Israel, where the horrific attack by the terrorists has provoked a very major war that threatens now to pull in other neighboring countries and perhaps others from further afield. You know, we put our clocks back just now recently because of the time change as winter approaches, and it's as if we're stepping back in time into darkness again as these wars rage. While Ukraine and its civilians and soldiers bravely carried the fight on the ground, in the air, to their Russian invaders, unfortunately their struggle is being overshadowed, hopefully temporarily, by what's going on in the Middle East. And obviously the Hamas-Israeli war dominates the headlines. And Hamas's spokesperson has just acknowledged in recent days, speaking on Egyptian television, that this sudden vile attack on Israel has in fact been very good for Russia because it's diverted attention away from Ukraine. Indeed, this Hamas spokesperson telling the Arab world through the Egyptian channel said that the Arabs, he meant his own terrorist organization, were giving a masterclass to the world, and that both Russia and China and others will be taking note. He called upon Hezbollah and Arabs in the West to show their anti-Western stance through appropriate actions, meaning probably terroristic attacks, more of them. So it's complicated not only the international scene, but also the domestic scene in many countries, as mass protests are being mobilized, supposedly for the Palestinians, but serving an agenda which Moscow and Tehran fully approve of, if not are behind it. The situation is compounded also by the strong anti-Israeli stance adopted by the Turkish president. He's not the only one to be differing with his Western allies and friends. Just look at the behavior of Hungary's Prime Minister, Viktor Orban. He not only went to Moscow and embraced the criminal, the war criminal, Putin, who has killed in a genocidal war so many Ukrainians and is threatening the entire world, but he went back to compare the EU, the European Union, to the totalitarian Soviet Union. No wonder that almost immediately Russia's vassal in Minsk, Lukashenko, rushed to invite Orban to visit Minsk in order, as it were, to discuss very serious matters. And Lukashenko has since gone on record saying, look, the war, Russia's war against Ukraine is stalemated. By implication, they need the Lukashenkos and the Orbans to be the peacemakers now. Farcical, isn't it? But look, the situation is even more complicated. We await to see what will happen in Washington now that a new speaker has been appointed or elected in the House of Representatives, what this will mean for support for Ukraine and indeed for the entire American budget. We look at Poland, where a new coalition is still being formed and a new government is about to be announced. But nevertheless, there are good things as well. The EU's and Certainly, most of the American establishment support for Ukraine remains very strong, and it's been expressed not only in financial support continuing, but also in new arms deliveries and promises of such deliveries in the future. And the fact that we've just had in recent days a successful new meeting of countries, over 60 as I understand, interested in President Zelensky's peace plan. And in these consultations, they've moved forwards towards perhaps a global summit, bar some, of course, those who are against peace, primarily Moscow. Look, it's a difficult time. And just to summarize, we have November approaching or upon us. This November, we commemorate, unfortunately, the 90th anniversary of the Holodomor, the artificial starvation, genocidal of millions of Ukrainians. And we still see on Ukrainians' territory a genocidal war exterminating thousands and thousands of Ukrainians and destroying their life, their towns, their culture. But let's be optimistic. Out of darkness cometh light. The end of the year approaches. We look forward to getting to the end of the year with the tenacity and resoluteness that the Ukrainians have been showing, and that the next year and spring will bring the victory that Ukraine and its supporters and allies very much look forward to. Bohdan, Nahaylo, I've been thinking out loud. Thank you.